So we've got some new folks, it looks like, coming back out of the breakout room. Now is a great time if you're new to the call or you haven't been on in a little while. We'd love to have you give your 30-second introduction / elevator pitch to introduce yourself to the community. Feel free to raise your hand or you can call on you.
Okay, I'm going to kick it off. I'm going to kick it off with Mickey. Go for it.
Hey, I'm Mickey Pelletier. Nice to meet you all. I'm located just north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Spent about 17 years in the contingent workforce space. Recently was the head of contingent workforce strategy over at Meta. I was part of that layoff, unfortunately, at the start of the year, and started my own practice, CWM Strategies, focused on bridging the leading practices that exist now with the future of work and the future of innovations that are taking place. So looking to network with you all and exchange ideas and get to know more people and see what's going on. So really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Nice, Mickey. Thanks. Where are you calling in from?
Just north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Great. Awesome. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Who else is new?
I don't see any more.
Anyone else want to introduce yourself? And if not, feel free to put your LinkedIn or your contact information in the chat. We can connect with you that way.
Yeah, feel free to drop in any information about LinkedIn URLs, company URLs, upcoming events, things like that. We'll share this out afterwards, and you can network that way as well.
Awesome. Thanks. So Brennan, before we do any other announcements, I just want to let everyone know, if you aren't aware already, South by Southwest, their 2024 event, they're currently opening the panel picker speaker applications for speaker proposals now through July 23rd. If you're not already familiar, South by Southwest is not just a film festival. It's so much more than that. And it's a great opportunity for folks on this call to share their stories and their expertise and what innovations they're pioneering. So I will put the link for those panel picker speaker applications in the chat. Brandon, any other announcements?
I don't have any announcements other than, as you all know, we're hosting an event in Boulder, Colorado this fall, October 4th through the 6th. We've got some great speakers lined up, many familiar faces that you know: Jeff Schwartz, John Healy, John Younger, Barry Matthews and John Windsor, and more to be announced soon. And we're getting a lot of great support from our community, all the platforms we work with for sponsorship. So if there's any interest on that front, feel free to reach out, as well as purchasing tickets. Love to see you all here in Boulder in October.
Yeah, just to add, I'm really excited because, we tried to do this literally as COVID started. I don't know if you guys remember, but we had that virtual conference and it was going to be a live conference, and, it's just unfortunate. So, this community has been such an amazing part of my life and OA, and just given so much. And we'd love to kind of get the community together. And that's the real purpose of Transform Work 2023. I think there's a lot of great stuff to share. I'm going to be, kind of sharing a lot of stuff from my upcoming book that Harvard's publishing later this fall. But we also have a lot of other great speakers. And I think it's important that we have a in-person, dialogue, that we get together and share stories and meet each other, in person for the first time, many of us. So really welcome everybody to come. Brandon, you put that in the link?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, and give me a shout personally if you have any questions, or if there's special ways that you guys would want to be involved. Would love to, see that happen, and just would love to have everybody involved.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Does anyone from the community have any upcoming events or webinars or podcasts or research that they want to share? Anything upcoming that we should know about? You can always put it in the chat too, and we can follow you that way. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's dive right in. This is a conversation that I think's been brewing for a little while. So we've got some awesome folks back today talking about the perceptions of freelancing that are happening in India and how technology is enabling digital citizens in the country. I'll keep it short and sweet. Mark will set the stage a lot better than I could. But I will say this, I've been talking to him for the last year, and if our conversations have taught me anything, it's that it's time that we fully come to understand and realize India's position in the global economy and the contributions that it continues to make towards the world of work that we know is possible. And I know Mark would agree. So we're super to have you back, Mark. For those of you who don't know Mark, he's an entrepreneur, he's a TEDx speaker. He's also the author of Midnight's Grandchildren, which is a book that explains how younger generations in India are disrupting the country's economy and democracy. With him, we've got Sakshi Khurana, who's an expert in labor, employment, and skills development with NITI Aayog. I hope I pronounced that correctly, which is a policy think tank of the government of India. She's the lead author of the report she'll discuss on India's booming gig and platform economy. And with her is Anjali Bansal, who is also an associate with NITI Aayog. Definitely check out and wait to hear about her doctoral thesis, which is really exciting. So Mark will have you kick things off, but just as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll do my best to call on you and get to everybody. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Mark, you might be on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi. Can you all hear me? Thank you for that introduction, and well done on the pronunciations of names and NITI Aayog. Some of those are not always easy. Young India and the future of work. As some of you who've been on these calls for some time know, I've spent the past 15 years living in India. I moved apartment 2 months ago, and I want to just very briefly tell you a story about that move. I made a phone call to a company called Jio. Jio, J-I-O, is part of the Reliance group, which is run by the Ambani family. They provide internet, broadband, and mobile phone services. And I phoned and said that I had moved into my new apartment and I would like their broadband services. And 15 minutes later, there was a man at the door of my apartment who was phoning me because I wasn't in my apartment because I hadn't got home that quickly, wanting to know where I was because he had come to get me connected to the internet. Anyway, I had to provide a couple of pieces of documentation. He had a device that he was able to scan, and I was able to make an online payment. And within less than 15 hours, I had my super fast broadband network. And it doesn't even cost me $15 a month to have that. India has the cheapest data in the world. And so for about the equivalent of $8 a month, I'm able to enjoy fantastic services. So Digital India is a very kind of exciting place. I want to dig in and explore that and really begin with a question about why India matters. 4 data points. The 5th largest economy in the world since 2022. And since around April 2023, it has been or is the most populous nation on the planet. The average age of an Indian is just 28 years. So it's a very young and large population. There are around 500 million workers. In other words, around 1 in 6 workers on the planet is an Indian. And I think those are all reasons why we need to take seriously the things that happen in India, because what happens in India increasingly, I think, impacts us in every other part of the world. Young Indians are increasingly employable and impressively qualified. One of the reasons that motivated me to go and bring up my young family in India was because of the quality of education. And my 2 children have successfully navigated and come out the other side. Education is highly valued in India. And India produces very large numbers of highly qualified engineers, amongst others. My contention, and that of many other business folks these days, is that those young people offer an answer to the global tech talent shortage, and that India is increasingly now a source of innovation. That certainly wasn't the case 15 years ago when I first moved to India. There was very much a sense that innovation happened in other parts of the world, and it was then, if you like, exported to India. Whereas increasingly, I think we're seeing interesting innovation, particularly perhaps around digital, fintech, and other financial services that I increasingly find applications in other parts of the world. So, for example, there's a system called UPI, which stands for Unified Payment Interface. It was launched in 2016. It has more than 300 million monthly active users. And in the last financial year, the value of transactions was $1.7 trillion. Bear in mind that the Indian economy itself is worth about $3.7, $3.8 trillion, right? So these numbers are massive. So increasingly, I think India matters. And what, as I said, what happens in India is important in other parts of the world. I coined the term Midnight's grandchildren to describe the 440 million Indian millennials, and they are all now in the workforce. They're very young and they are ambitious. They are much less interested in a job for life than the parents and grandparental generations. They are digital natives, and they are increasingly connected to global supply chains. And so there's an immense amount of disruption happening in the workforce. And I was very interested a year ago to find a report which had been published by NITI Aayog. Sakshi Khurana, who joins us today, and in fact came and spoke to us about a year ago when the report was launched, and some of you may remember that, was the lead author on this report titled India's Booming Gig and Platform Economy. And I know, because I've had several conversations with Sakshi, that in a sense has become quite a catalyst within the country for a whole range of different conversations and new networks. And I think lots of research work and perhaps investments which this has spawned. And so what I wanted to do was to engage Sakshi in a conversation to look again at what motivated that original piece of research, and then perhaps to look at some of the things that she's learned over the past year, because I know she's been out and about speaking extensively. And Anjali also joins us, who is in the process of writing a doctoral thesis and is very much looking at the way in which technology, and particularly AI, is impacting the workforce in India. And I thought that that was a subject which is of interest to us as a community. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I'm going to invite Sakshi to begin by telling us what was it that sort of motivated you to write that original report that was published a year ago.
Thank you, Mark, for the introductions and for setting the context in such a wonderful way. I'm really glad to be joining this community again after almost a year, as Mark mentioned. Mark had invited me to join right after the launch of our report in June 2022. And it was wonderful to interact with so many of you colleagues across the world working in this area, or who are connected to the freelancing community or the gig and platform economy in some way or the other. I also got a chance to connect with a lot of experts, thought leaders in the area. So it's great coming back on this platform. As Mark mentioned, that the report somewhere served as a catalyst for initiating a lot of discussions in India around the potential of gig and platform economy, around the potential that the sector has in terms of offering flexibility. Mark talked about the huge data, huge access, the fact that a huge population in India has access to internet, and we're the second largest internet subscriber base in the world, and second for internet usage as well as for mobile subscription usage. Our report, in fact, estimated that there were 7.7 million gig and platform workers in 2020 and 2021, which formed nearly 1.5% of the total workforce at that time. And our report also estimates that this is likely to grow to 23.5 million workers by 2030, which would be almost 4.1% of the total workforce in India. Following the release of the report, we had the chance to engage with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of experts. NITI Aayog, as some of you, as Mark also mentioned, and as some of you might have heard of, is the think tank for Government of India. NITI stands for National Institution for Transforming India. So as the think tank, as the apex think tank in the government, our mandate is to come up with knowledge products that contribute to policy making and to knowledge in the area. And our report did enable us to interact, to connect with a lot of stakeholders, including central government ministries, state governments, experts, researchers working in the area, industry experts. We organized 2 events, one at IIT Bombay, which Mark also joined us for, and another one at ISB Mohali in Chandigarh, which is in North India. So where we got the chance to engage with state government officials, researchers working in the field. Also, we were joined by a lot of research scholars working in the field who are undertaking research in the area on the gig and platform economy, on freelancing work, and also on other aspects of future of work. So that enabled us to learn quite a lot. It also highlighted for us the challenges that workers face. Especially, we got to hear from trade union representatives, we got to hear from researchers who were talking to workers on ground. Through this platform, we connected with organizations like freelancers.com, getting to hear about both the potential that such platforms have, as well as the challenges that employees or professionals face who are connected to the platform. We also understood that there are challenges as well as opportunities related to skill development. I was recently a part of a webinar organized by GIZ, where it was discussed that micro-credentials are an upcoming way for gig and platform workers, especially for gig and platform workers, and for young professionals, young workers in general, to upskill themselves, to undertake skill training in new areas where they can get connected to experts, researchers, and tutors in any part of the world, and also get certified. So micro-credentials were being discussed as a big way of, for industry to meet its skill needs, skill requirements. We also have been a part of a lot of discussions on the potential that the sector has for women, given that some of you might be aware that India, of course, India has a huge population, and a huge part of India's population comprises of women who often feel constrained in participating actively in the economy, given that a large proportion of the burden of care work falls on women. So that's been a challenge for India, as well as a policy priority, that how do we enable women to actively participate in the economy. So through our various discussions and research that went into the report, we highlighted that the gig and platform sector enables a lot of women, especially women who've had career breaks, women who are looking for flexibility to again have income earning opportunities. It also enables them to have some sort of balance in their time, enabling them to manage both their care responsibilities and paid work. Also, we got a chance to be a part of the G20 Employment Working Group. India, as some of you might know, India has been steering the presidency of for G20 this year. And under India's presidency, there have been a lot of G20 events, working group meetings being organized. I was part of the Employment Working Group meeting held in Jodhpur in February, where one of the priority areas for the G20 was social protection for gig and platform workers. So I presented, I made the presentation for India on the various initiatives that we have for social security of gig and platform workers existing, as well as initiatives that are being developed by the government, and in collaboration with the private sector. So we also talked about, I think the last time when I presented, we did mention that India has a code on social security, which gives a special mention to gig and platform workers, which talks about social security initiatives for gig and platform workers. Now, this code is yet to come into implementation, but this is considered the first big step in recognizing gig and platform workers as a separate, distinct category, and flagging the need to have innovative social security initiatives for gig and platform workers, given that there are very often definitional or classification issues for gig and platform workers. They're in many contexts not classified as workers or employees, and are very often termed as self-employed or contract workers, often given the name of partners or independent workers and so on. So these were some of the issues that the G20 meeting highlighted, and we got a chance to present India's case, that what is being done in India. We also highlighted that a lot of platform companies themselves have come up with social security initiatives for gig and platform workers that need to be replicated, extended by other platforms. So those were some of the thoughts that I wanted to share, Mark.
Thank you, Sakshi. Let me pick up on one of the points that you made there, which is around the sort of policy and the definitional aspect of this, in terms of the fact that the Indian government is increasingly recognizing digitally enabled gig and platform work as a legitimate form of work. But I think it's fair to say that there are cultural challenges there as well, because historically, freelancing has not been seen as a very legitimate way of earning a living in India. There are lots of perhaps cultural norms which suggest that, the job for life with a good institution is the way to go, and that having that perhaps, enhances your marriage prospects, for example, but that being a freelancer isn't going to be advantageous to you. So I just wondered whether you had a view in terms of the degree to which culturally there is a change or a shift in terms of the acceptability of freelancing or gig work.
I think research, that's what research and common knowledge is indicating, that there is certainly a shift. A lot of young people in India now prefer flexible jobs. They don't want to settle down with just one job, which they'll have throughout their lives, but they want to explore different opportunities and then, pick up the kind of work that they want to do. A lot of young people are looking for flexibility where they can manage where they have greater control over their own time, where they can, divide their time doing different things. So it's culturally also the acceptability of such work is changing. Hybrid and remote models of work are quite common in India. We also got a chance to look at Freelancers, freelancer.com's report, which was released this year, which mentions that freelancer.com has 18 million users who are Indian, 18 million Indian users. So that's a huge number. So indicating that, all these freelancing platforms or platforms that offer such opportunities of freelancing, independent work, flexible work are becoming really popular, especially among youngsters. And I also talked about the opportunities it offers for women, given that there are socio-cultural norms involved and care responsibilities fall on women. So it's also a great platform for people who have other constraints, like persons with disabilities. So that's what we try doing, highlighting the potential that this sector has for different sections, different categories of workers.
I'm going to come back to that in a minute, because I know Karen, who I met in the break, has got some thoughts that she's going to share on that question around the degree to which women the degree to which gig and platform or remote work is advantageous for women or not. You will be aware, Sakshi and others that follow the news in India, that there have been significant numbers of resignations recently, particularly from women in the large technology outsourcing companies, because they're increasingly insisting that their workers go back to the office. And particularly, I think women are saying, actually, no, that's not advantageous to me, or that's not the way that I want to work. And so you've had fairly large numbers of people resigning. But I want to move the conversation on a little bit and bring Anjali in, because, clearly technology is a great enabler of it is the enabler of the gig and platform economy. And I know, Anjali, that you are writing a doctoral thesis, which is really looking at the way in which technology, and I think particularly AI, is impacting India's workers. Now, I know you've got some slides. I was going to suggest that perhaps we start to bring you into the conversation by looking at a slide that you've prepared, which talks about the changing landscape of India's workforce. So if I may just share that. Anjali,
Yes.
Would you then kind of come in and introduce yourself and tell us about the slide that we've got here?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for inviting me to this open assembly. This is my first opportunity to be here and present. I'm working on that. My doctoral thesis is on how technology is going to change the employment landscape in India. And as Marx has highlighted that India is going to be the important for the global space. India has over 500 million workers, and every sixth worker, out of every sixth worker, one will be the Indian worker. So given that broad macro pictures, I have tried to disaggregate the over 500 million workers into these 4-5 different sectors. So as everyone knows that the biggest employed sector in India is the agriculture. Around 48% of the total workers in India is employed in the agriculture sector. But in the last 1 decade, the 48% has been reduced to 46%. So India is seeing the reduction in the number of employed workers in agriculture sector. And if we see the industrial workers, there is around 12% of the total workforce has been employed in the industries. And in terms of absolute number, if you can see, we can see the downfall in the absorption of workers in the industries in India. And the biggest reason for this I'll discuss in the next slide, why industries is showing the downward trend in the number of workers absorbed. Yeah, so if we'll see that this, I have tried to compile it from the International Federation of Robotics data source. They used to keep the stock of how much industrial robots are getting installed globally and in each countries. So if you will see, in the last 1 decade, there is a huge growth of industrial robots in India. Like from 4,000 industrial robots in 2010, India has reached 32,000 industrial robots now. So and if we can see, this growth growth in industrial robots is impacting the skilled and the semi-skilled jobs in manufacturing in India's manufacturing sector. For example, if we can see in the assembly lines, now India is picking up and they are making their assembly line automatic. So it is reducing the person's requirement on the machine assembly line. And in terms of skill classification, we have seen very positive trend among the Indian workforce, that the high skilled workers are increasing over the years, and the annual growth rate is at 3.3%. And the medium and the low skilled workers dominating the Indian workforce, but the growth is less than the high skilled workforce. So if I want to say, making a point here, that with the technology adoption and with the AI coming into the picture, there is need to increase the skilled workforce, and we need, and as Mark has also pointed out, that India is presenting highly qualified workers, and we are on that track, and it is the need of the hour.
And Anjali, do you see evidence that investment is being made in the upskilling of Indian workers as a response to the arrival of automation and AI?
Yes. So India has seen the development of number of initiatives aimed at embedding AI use throughout all levels of government and society. For example, India has drafted the National Governance Framework Report in India. And India is also on a mission to train 3 million government officials in AI and the other emerging technologies. And also, India has launched a mission on semiconductor missions to improve and to make in India sort of things, so that India can place the global advantage in sustaining semiconductor and have a proper ecosystem. India has also published the India National AI Strategy in 2018. So, and according to AI Governance Readiness Index prepared by Global WF Forum, India ranks 32 out of 188 countries. And India is one of the top countries amongst the Central and the Southeast Asian countries in the readiness of AI. So lot of government initiatives have been taken up to improve the upskilling and to providing upskilling and reskilling to the government workforce also. And lot of institutes are also training the Indian workforce, especially in the drone technology, especially in the crop scouting and other skills.
Thanks, Anjali. One of the things I've been thinking about recently is the arrival of AI in the workplace, and the fact that the impact of that is different in different parts of the world, right? Because advanced economies have been built on process and hardware. How do they compete when the world is driven by agility and software? And developing economies have essentially been powered by pools of cheap labor. And how do they compete when the advantage is absent and robots do the routine tasks? And I wonder, Sakshi, whether or not that's something that you've been thinking about, and whether or not you've got any sort of thoughts to share on that.
Yes, so that's an area that we've been trying to look at, especially this year, since there's a lot of discussion this year on generative artificial intelligence and its impact on different job roles, different industry sectors, and so on. So that's something we've been trying to. That's a major challenge also for a huge economy like India, which as you mentioned, Mark, is labor intensive. We have a huge labor pool, And if technology can also be a threat in some ways. So as a think tank, our responsibility lies in studying both the potential that technology might have to offer through its implications for increase in productivity, through its implications in creating new opportunities, in different sectors, and also studying coming up with strategies on if certain job roles are getting affected in certain sectors, what can be done for reskilling or upskilling of workers so that they can get absorbed in other job roles where there is more demand.
Yeah.
So that's something which we've been trying to study and understand.
And it feels to me like, as you said, the Indian government has been an early adopter, if you like, in terms of thinking about and publishing papers around the impact of artificial intelligence, where, you get a sense that in other parts of the world, people are kind of laggards and playing catch up to some degree. And again, I think that sort of goes to my earlier point, which is around the fact that, increasingly India is a place and source of innovation, which it's then able to export to other parts of the world. Karen, I'm going to bring you in because we had an interesting sort of 5-minute chat in the breakout room. Do you want to just pick up that idea around the degree to which remote work and work which is enabled by the gig and platform economy is advantageous to women or not?
John or Mark, I don't see her in the participants list anymore.
She's perhaps dropped off. We had a very interesting, albeit brief conversation, which was the degree to which, gig and platform work could be seen as contributing to an ESG agenda, and particularly the S part of that, and the degree to which it's bringing people who were previously disadvantaged into the workforce. And it may be that at some point we're able to get her back and to have a subsequent conversation with her on that.
Mark, I could say something about this if that's helpful from the experience I had in Kerala.
I know that you've recently been in India, so would you like to tell us?
Yeah, so I was working with the government of Kerala, which is the most southerly state in India, as was John Healey. He put more on the line than I did, but that's another story. Part of the agenda was to reactivate that segment of the workforce, the women who were in a way excluded because of cultural, social, caring, that kind of thing. And the thesis that we were working on is that remote work and work via platforms absolutely gives access to those women to opportunity, but there's a whole lot of enabling activity that needs to exist to allow them to do that. Because if you are working in your home and your home consists of an extended family and children and work that needs to be done in that domestic setting, then it's quite difficult to provide professional services to international clients. And so what the Kerala government is doing, which I think is really interesting, is setting up this structure of work near home centers, hubs, where you can go and you can access training, you can access opportunity, or you can just use it as a base to work that allows you to get out of the domestic setting, have access to brilliant infrastructure. And it's really an enabling program to kickstart that freelance economy in the state of Kerala. I thought it was really enlightened and a good way of thinking about it.
One of the other things that's very interesting about that Kerala initiative is that lots of people historically over the past decades have left Kerala to go and work in other parts of the world, right? And they have been, instrumental, if you like, in terms of the success of the Middle East. And I think that there's a desire on the part of the Kerala government to create opportunities so that people stay and, make their contribution to the Indian, or at least to the Kerala government. We won't get into the politics of India and its states, but that people stay at home rather than migrating. And I wonder whether that was something of your work.
Yeah, for sure. One of the main drivers behind this work is that Kerala is a very socialist leaning state. They invest hugely in enabling their citizens, so they're very educated population. They end up with great qualifications, but very little opportunity. And even though you see the emphasis, TCS, that those kind of big service providers are setting up centers, that is not enough to consume all the brilliance coming out of the universities. And so people are migrating outside the country. And money's flowing back to Kerala. That's not really the issue. Money has been sent home by those Keralites that have gone to live abroad, but they're not directly spending in the local communities. And it causes a social problem, a kind of hollowing out of the society, where that young, predominantly male worker part of the population is going overseas, leaving women and the older and younger generations back at home, being kind of served by their international families. It's not good for the family, it's not good for society. So they want to find a way to keep people in Kerala. They might be working for organizations around the globe, but they can at least be sitting in their homes in Kochi or in Trivandrum or wherever.
Yeah, Sakshi, is that something else that you've seen in other parts of India? So are there other state governments that have made sort of similar initiatives?
So in fact, this is something which we've been working on a report on strengthening the care economy, where we have also documented the Andhra Pradesh government setting up work from hometown, centers on the same lines as what you were talking about for Kerala, which allows people who are, who are into remote work or hybrid models of work to get to the center called the work from hometown center and do their work, which offers great internet facility, which offers desks where they can sit, which is close to their homes, as well as gives them time to be away from homes and focus on work. So yes, there are such initiatives which we are trying to document as part of our ongoing work as well.
John in the chat has said Kolkata is also trialing some sort of initiative. It's interesting that both West Bengal and Kerala have in common the fact that they're largely been socialist governments over the last several decades, and that may have a bearing there. Karen, are you back? I wanted to bring you into the conversation briefly, just to pick up on the ESG question that we were chatting about in the breakout room.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Eleanor, and the presenters for the information. So the question came, companies are really trying to sort of the S in ESG, which is the social, the relations to labor, and part of the hybrid work or freelance work is bringing more women into the workforce and enabling the development of companies and people that are outside of the usual catchment areas of the larger urban centers. And so the idea of Eleanor about how could companies think about hiring freelancers, but also giving them a place where they can come together, have a little bit of the community building, learn from each other, and especially for women to have this work-life balance that enables some separation from the home life without having to commuting all the way. So this notion of trying to get the best of both possible worlds is one that I've been very interested in, and your ideas have been precious. So thank you very much, Mark, for this opportunity.
Well, to be honest, I'm just the facilitator. It's the other people who've done the thinking and the research and the publishing of things. Let me open it up for the last 5 minutes. I can see Brandon's put some questions in, which may have been his own questions or may have been things that have come from other members of the community. But let me open it up for the last 5 minutes, and we'll take some questions.
Yeah, I've actually got a question. So I'd love to hear from the three of you based on your research and everything that you've researched and everything that you've seen. What are you most excited about when it comes to the biggest opportunities for India's workforce?
Well, one is that given that we have a huge youth population, So, and a lot of young people, as we mentioned, are interested in jobs that involve freelancing, jobs that have a technology element to it, where they're, closely connected to technology. So that's something that's really exciting for us as people who are researching jobs and skills for future, that what skills could be relevant in the coming years, what kind of jobs would be relevant. The freelancers.com report, which I mentioned, says for India that jobs like web designing, Photoshop, Illustrator, codings will continue to be relevant in the coming years. So that points towards the relevance of technology tools, designing, creative economy as it is known, which holds a lot of potential. India has a lot of potential also in terms of we know that there's a huge, which some of you would be aware of, that there's a huge informal workforce engaged in sectors such as construction, garments, a lot of people who are employed as street vendors. So even for workers who are engaged in the informal economy, we see that in future there is a prospect. There are opportunities for them also to get linked to digital platforms where they can have better incomes, better access to markets, to clients, and so on. So that is certainly an opportunity that we should be excited about.
Yeah, I would add to that. One of the things that excites me very much about India is this trend of formalizing the informal, and you're seeing, tens of millions, and in some instances, hundreds of millions of people being brought into the more formal economy. And there are a whole range of benefits that come from that. And I think digital technology is enabling that, and that's very exciting. We've probably got time for one more question. So anybody else like to get involved?
I can chime in with a few that I got in the chat. What are the current pain points? Like what problems that still need to be solved? Like is what's unemployment? What are you looking at what are some of the friction points that you need to overcome to make this successful?
Sakshi, do you want to take that? You're probably better qualified than I am.
So pain points or challenges when we talk about, especially about the opportunities that the gig and platform sector has. Challenges include the problem of classification, as we discussed, that very often there is no, there aren't enough distinct classifications, which comes in the way of providing social security to these workers and other benefits. These workers who are engaged with the gig and platform economy may not have paid leave. They don't have certain or definite incomes. That remains a challenge. Again, challenge relative to gender, that women, in terms of, there's time poverty for women. There are constraints on their time, that how much time can they devote to paid work. Opportunities for skill training for women is also a constraint, that, it's a decision whether I should be spending my time in income earning opportunities, or should I be spending my time in trying to upskill or reskill myself. So that is a major constraint for women. So also the fact that, people are engaged in work for multiple platforms. So there is no single employer which governments or regulators can hold responsible. So that also remains a major challenge, that there is no, single employer, unlike in other industries or sectors where there could be one employer who could be identified and there is a distinct employer-employee relationship. So these are some of the challenges and pain points that continue to be of concern.
Okay.
Cool. Well, I think we've Ashley, you might want to just kind of wrap things up for us.
That sounds great, Mark. Thank you so much, Sakshi and Anjali. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today, and everyone who showed up to participate. We so appreciate your insights. And for everyone in the community, our next call will be on Thursday, July 20th from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern. We've got Dr. Lauren Daley, a leader at Catalyst. She's got two pretty reputable titles over at Catalyst, and she's going to be totally flipping over the definition of flexible work. And so I hope you'll come back for that engaging discussion and maybe bring a friend, but we appreciate you all being here.
Thanks, Ashley. What a great session. Thanks, Sakshi.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
See you next
Thank
time.
you, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you to the presenters. Bye.